Good evening and welcome to what I think many hope will be the last night of this annual town meeting. My name is Brian Walsh. I'm your associate moderator, filling in for Mr. Hiss. We are starting tonight with Article 44, which you will find on page 104, 104. And I want to point out to the body that we have 5 articles. And I think it's well within reason to expect that we could probably finish these tonight. And but in any event, we will certainly deliberate them all. And without further wait, let's get started. So Article 43 is recommended that the town vote to authorize the select board to take all necessary and appropriate actions to establish and maintain, in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 164 of the general laws, and in accordance with the rules, regulations, and orders of Department of Public Utilities and the Department of Telecommunications and Cable, a municipal lighting plant for all purposes allowable under the laws of the Commonwealth, including without limitation the operation of the telecommunications system and related services. This is submitted by the select board, and I would just check to see if the chair, Melinda Collins, would like to address this, or someone from the select board.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Melinda Collins, Vice Chair of the Milton Select Board and Precinct Member, Town Meeting Precinct 9. I would like to recognize Mr. Zulis, who is Chair of the Broadband Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zulis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mike Zulis, Precinct 3, Town Meeting Member. Oh, am I good here? Yes. Mike Zulis, Precinct 3, Town Meeting Member and member of the Select Board. And good evening to everyone. I would like to begin by asking each of you to take a moment and imagine the possible. I'd like you to imagine a world where you can stream videos, you can attend Zoom meetings, you can work from home, you can enjoy FaceTime with relatives, you can have kids do their schoolwork and have every device in your home streaming without worrying about the reliability of your internet connection. I'd like you to imagine a world where you don't have to think about limits on data, even with multiple devices in your home. I'd like you to imagine a world where you can choose among several internet providers that offer different plans to fit your family's budget and your family's internet needs. And I'd like you to imagine a world where the monthly cost for your internet connection can be less than half of what it is today. That, my friends, is the world of a municipal fiber optic broadband network. I speak tonight as the chair of the Municipal Broadband Committee, and I speak on behalf of our members, John Sullivan, Mark Day, Rob Lynch, and Joe Chamberlain. And I have a very short presentation of 5 slides. Just trying to get back to where I am here so I can see the slides. All right. We can go to the first slide. I'm not sure if it's Lynn who is doing this or Hillary. Thank you, Lynn. So the first thing I'd like to point out is what this article does not do. There is no financial impact to this article. It does not allocate any money, does not incur any liability, and does not incur any obligation for the town. This is the first step in a long process. Well, hopefully not a long process, but the first step in a process, but an important test. So we're not asking for anything to bind the town right now, but the town does get something. Next slide, please. What the town gets is the municipal broadband vision, the vision of a town-owned fiber network, the vision of internet access as a utility for town operations, schools, residents, and businesses. Now, what does that mean? That means better, faster, cheaper internet access for everyone. Now, I'm going to repeat that in case your internet connection is not that good tonight. It means better, faster, cheaper internet access for everyone. Now, we're not the only ones who are trying to do this. There are other cities and towns that have done it and that are trying to do it. Braintree has done it, Norwood's done it, Quincy is working on it. They just issued an RFP on it. Weymouth is looking at it. Towns and cities with foresight are looking to do this or have done it. And it's my view that the cities and towns that build out their broadband infrastructure will be the technology winners for the next 20 or 30 years, particularly a town like Milton with a hospital and public and private schools such as Curry College and Milton Academy and Fontbonne. All of these, including our residents and our town operations, our public safety, will benefit from a municipal fiber optic network. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we are at the beginning of a process. The structure of the Massachusetts general law on this is that there is no provision in the Massachusetts general laws for creation of a municipal broadband system. So it is done under the municipal lighting plant statute, and this is what other cities and towns have done. And that it requires, that's why this article is called a municipal lighting plant, even though we don't propose any kind of a municipal electric service for Milton. This is just for broadband. It requires 2 town meeting votes. If the vote is not approved tonight, then we're out of the box for 2 years. If it is approved tonight, it has to be approved again by town meeting within 13 months. Our view and our proposal and our of the Municipal Broadband Committee is we hope to have this approved as an initial matter tonight. Our intention is to come back to you in October with a business plan, how we're going to develop it, how we're going to pay for it. Now, why is this important now? Many of you may have noticed that the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, which is just recently enacted, includes funding for municipalities for 3 things related to infrastructure: water, sewer, and, you guessed it, municipal broadband. We want to be prepared if those funds are available, and that's why it's particularly important to move now and to begin this process. Next slide, please. Again, just very briefly on a municipal light plant. This is how Massachusetts law sets up the legal structure for a lighting plant for telecommunications or electric or gas company. And this is how, in absence of any specific statute dealing with the municipal broadband, this is how Massachusetts and cities and towns do it. And this is, as I said, the first step that sets up that legal structure. Nothing binding, no obligation, but it's the first step to set up that legal structure so we can go down the road of a municipal fiber optic broadband network. And final slide, Hillary or Lynn, whoever it is. Again, this for tonight is about the spark of possibility. This is not about any kind of binding obligation, not about any kind of financial obligation. There are no obligations, no strings here. But if you vote yes on Article 44, you will have created the spark of possibility for a municipal fiber optic broadband network, and that spark of possibility for Milton for the next 20 or 30 years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Zulus. And I see Joe Chamberlain, a town meeting member. Your hand is raised. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joe Chamberlain, town meeting member Precinct 4. And I am speaking in support of Article 44. And I'd also like to share what I hope is an interesting point with town meeting tonight, very briefly. In March of 1892, Braintree Town Meeting voted to establish the Braintree Electric Light Department, one of the first municipal light plants in Massachusetts. They also appropriated funds to construct and run an electric generation plant for public street lighting, which quickly expanded to electrify the whole town. The town of Braintree made their first capital investment in community-owned electrical infrastructure, pretty much right at the dawn of the age of electricity, an infrastructure that to this day is still a vital component of people's everyday lives. Those early citizens were committed to an American democratic tradition that allowed local residents to make important decisions about their public services, just as we are doing here tonight, as we take our first vote to establish a municipal light plant for the town of Milton, so that we can build a 100% fiber optic network for the benefit of the whole community today and for generations to come. I believe that in 2021, we too are at the dawn of an age, the information age. And it's my hope that we here at Milton Town Meeting will have the same foresight tonight as our forebears had over a century ago when they took it upon themselves to make an essential component of life into a utility. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Chamberlain. I see we have Mr. Leroy Walker. Your hand is raised. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Leroy Walker, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 10. My congratulations to the Broadband Committee. I think that vision is precisely what we need in this area, as well as competition. And I think this certainly provides an opportunity for the town to take advantage of the technology that's out there and also to level the playing field considerably. So I urge everyone to vote yes on this. This has my enthusiastic support and I will vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. I see Brian O'Halloran. You have your hand raised. You're recognized.
Yes, hi, Mr. Moderator, good evening. Brian O'Halloran, Precinct 3. Can you please characterize the content of the data that's being broadcast on this municipal network? Is it government regulated content, or is it private content, or some combination of the both?
Okay, so I'm looking, would Mr. Zulus be able to answer that question?
I will do my best, Mr. Moderator. Mike Zulus, Precinct 3 Town Meeting member of the Select Board. Mr. O'Halloran, it is private content. It is whatever content that you would choose based on the provider, the internet service provider that you would choose. So as a resident, you will have the opportunity to choose among many internet service providers. And for the town, it will build an infrastructure to allow the town's communications to be much, much better. The town's communications for public safety, and the town's communications for the schools. So it is private content with respect to what the residents have access to, and public content for the purposes of communication within the town, town services such as police, fire, and the schools.
Yes. Yeah, thank you very much. Follow-up question. What sort of physical changes in the existing infrastructure that's in town, for example, wiring, for example, we have cable content being delivered to our homes over wires. We have telephone, we have electricity. Is there additional physical infrastructure that's required to implement this?
Mr. Moderator, if I...
Yes, Mr. Zulus, please.
Yes, Mike Zulus, Precinct 3 Town Meeting member of the Select Board. Yes, Mr. O'Halloran, this would be a process of first wiring. Again, I look at it in two sides: wiring the town institutions, right, for their communications, and then wiring the residents. So you would be wiring the town for this, and the way that it is done primarily now, as I understand it, is through pole attachments. So that we'd be wiring the town through the poles, similar to the way Comcast or Verizon or other providers provide their services. So it would be an additional infrastructure for the poles in the town, at least under the current technology.
Thank you. Would it be redundant with the existing infrastructure? So for example, if we added another wire that complements the RCN or Comcast cables, would that obsolete those cables or would those continue to exist?
They could continue to exist as Mr. Walker, I'm sorry, Mr. Moderator. I didn't mean to engage in a dialogue, Mr. Moderator, if I may.
Yeah, Mr. Zulus, just before you do, let me remind Mr. Halloran and Mr. Zulus is clearly aware of it. As a longstanding tradition, we do not typically engage and allow a back and forth between two speakers directly. So we would hope that the town meeting members would think of the questions they want, and let's get them all out there. And I certainly would recognize a member for a follow-up. This is, I think, the third follow-up, so I'd like to consider this. Mr. Halloran, do you have any other questions that you think you'd like addressed?
I do not. Thank you very much. I'm a newbie.
Not to worry, Mr. Halloran. We all were at one point. Mr. Zulus, you recognize the purpose of addressing his question?
And Mr. Moderator, I apologize. I thought I had the answer, but now I've forgotten exactly what the question was, so I don't want to.
Mr. Halloran, please go ahead and repeat your question.
That's all right. I'll pass. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So we have a few members waiting to speak. Next, I see Michael Fahey. Mr. Fahey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Fahey, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 9. I commend the town for taking on this effort. I think it's important in the future that we stay on top of issues like this and not only physical infrastructure. So thank you for that. Given the fact that this is only a vote to consider it, I think we should hold off on specific questions and wait until they come back with a business plan in the fall. Considering there are no obligations, fiscal or otherwise, I motion to previous question.
So, Mr. Fahey, just to be sure that we're correct here, there is an option in our bylaws that you can move the question, which is essentially saying that you're asking the town meeting to allow every speaker to only speak once and speak for 5 minutes. Is that your wish, or are you just edging the members along to move more quickly on this?
I believe I am asking to move the vote if that's allowed, if not edging the voters to move more quickly if possible.
Okay, let's take it as that. Thank you. I see that we have a few more speakers. Jill Clark, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jill Clark, Precinct 4. The previous speaker mentioned that this article would not create a municipal light board or obligate Milton to create a municipal light board. I'm curious to know if it would open any opportunities to create a municipal light board or if it is entirely separate.
Very good. Mr. Zulus, take that question.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mike Zulus, Precinct 3 Town Meeting Member of the Select Board. Yes, this is and perhaps I wasn't clear, this is the first step to create the municipal light board, which is the legal infrastructure for a municipal broadband system. The second step for town meeting would be to vote again. So town meeting has to vote twice on this. If it is approved tonight, the second vote would have to be within 13 months. It may be that we ask that vote to come in October when we present the business plan. It may be that we ask that vote to come next May, because that would be within 13 months. So while this doesn't obligate the town, it creates the possibility that this structure can be set up by a meeting of town, by a vote of town meeting within the next 13 months.
Thank you, Mr. Zulus. I see that we have two more people waiting to speak, including Warren Committee Chair George Asher, which I'll have you hold for a minute, Mr. Asher. But Mr. Gilmore, Brian Gilmore, you're recognized. Mr. Gilmore, are you off mute? *6, I guess, is the command you can use. One more call. Mr. Gilmore, do you wish to speak? I see his hand is no longer raised. I see we have Steve McCurdy. Mr. Curdy, you wish to be recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Steve McCurdy, Precinct 7. I just want to point out that anytime government steps up and says it can do a job cheaper that the private industry is already doing, it makes me fairly skeptical. So I just want to sort of put the proponents of this on note that are really going to be looking toward a solid business plan that isn't going to burden the town with capital costs and with retirement costs and health insurance costs and everything else that goes along with it. So just a comment, not a question. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I see we have the chair of our warrant committee, Mr. Asher, you're recognized.
Mr. Moderator, I wanted to clarify something that had been brought up on the chat that we see regarding the deliberations of the warrant committee during town meeting. We are not in violation of open meeting laws when we ask non-warrant committee members to leave our meeting. When we are at the town meeting, we are ordinarily at the front of the room in executive session together discussing issues that are pertinent to the town meeting. As we are remote, we are doing this in another format where we are conducting our warrant committee meeting effectively in executive session so that we can have the discussions that we are required to have to discuss amendments to the warrant articles themselves. So I want to put the concerns of the town meeting member who made that observation to rest. We are not in violation of open meeting laws. We are here. We share our deliberations with the town meeting once they're completed.
Thank you, Mr. Asher. And you are certainly correct on that. Mr. McCurdy, I see a hand up. I don't know if that's up again or just hadn't been taken down. Mr. McCurdy, your hand is down. Okay. All right, folks, at this point, I do not see any more hands raised. I will tell you this vote will require a 2/3 vote. And so with that, I'd like to open up the poll and let's move this to a vote. All those in favor of the motion before the body, please signify by voting yes. All opposed, please vote no. And all abstaining, please vote abstain. Okay, and can we unmute the phones? All those on the phones vote yes, say aye.
Aye.
All those on the phones voting no, say no. Thank you. Okay, let's close the vote. Okay, so I see we have 89% or 187 members that vote yes. We have 9% or 20 members that voted no, and we have 2% or 4 members that have abstained. So the motion did require a 2/3 vote. I declare it's a 2/3 vote. The motion passes. Thank you. Okay, members, we are on to Article 45, which you will find at the bottom of page 104 in your warrant. And Article 45 is it's recommended that the town vote to extend for 2 years until November 3rd, 2023, the term of the Town Bylaw Review Committee, created by the vote of the 2015 annual town meeting in Article 43, and whose term has previously been extended by vote on Article 39 of the 2019 annual town meeting. And does anyone wish to speak to this motion? Mr. Mullen, I see you have your hand up. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Peter Mullen, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 2, and Chairman of the Town Bylaw Review Committee. I wanted to just briefly review what the committee is and what we're requesting in connection with this article. Currently, the town does not have available a copy of the town bylaws. As was mentioned last night in connection with the accessory use article, right now on the town website, the bylaws that we have there are only through 2007, and the zoning bylaw is only current up through 2009. Back in 2015, we voted to create a town bylaw review committee to review the current bylaws, to propose additions, subtractions, reorganization. The committee wasn't staffed until 2016. Since then, we've been reviewing the existing bylaws. The town has entered into a contract with a company that specializes in codification of municipal bylaws and ordinances by the name of General Code. They will create an electronically available database of the town bylaws, and they'll be able to be updated with each town meeting that we have. We've been delayed somewhat by the pandemic, and we didn't get a lot done last year. We're currently scheduled to expire in November of 2021. We're asking for a 2-year extension. We hope to be able to present to the town meeting in November or October, whenever we have that fall town meeting, the zoning bylaw. We have a revised draft. It's somewhat reorganized, but it's not making any kind of changes in the zoning bylaw. We need to run that by some of the stakeholders before it's going to be ready for presentation to town meeting. We think that we can complete this project well in advance of a November 2023 expiration, and would urge the town meeting to vote yes on this article. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. I see that we have Cheryl Tagayas wishing to be recognized. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Cheryl Tagayas, Town Meeting Member from Precinct 9. 3 or 4 or perhaps 5 years ago, the Planning Board offered $9,000 of a small budget to be put towards the codification of the general bylaws, and we were most particularly interested in the zoning bylaws. I did appreciate the update from the previous speaker, the chair of the committee. I am wondering if the consultant, General Code, has any progress on the entirety and where we are in the process, since this process started some time ago. Is that intended to be this fall would be completion of this codification so that we could anticipate that the zoning code could be up and available on the town website by the beginning of next year? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tagayas. I assume, Mr. Mullen, you can answer that question. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, the funding for the general code did come from the planning board. They have produced a draft of what the electronic version of the zoning bylaw would look like. That draft is currently under review by the committee and by the planning director. We expect that we will have that completed draft ready for presentation to a fall town meeting. Assuming that it's adopted by the fall town meeting, we would expect that we would have that as an existing electronic database following approval by the Attorney General's office.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen.
Mr. Moderator, may I ask a follow-up?
Yes, you may. You're recognized.
Thank you. If Mr. Mullen could provide feedback to the planning board before town meeting. I think the board would like to see this draft so that we could provide our input. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, if I might.
Go ahead, Mr. Mullen.
Yes, that is the plan that once we get the feedback from the planning director, the plan would be to present the draft to the planning board, to the zoning board of appeals, to the building commissioner, who's the enforcement agent, to anybody that has a stake in the zoning bylaw, to get their review, their input. Hopefully we'll all be agreed on what the draft should provide, and then we'll have the thing ready for presentation to the town meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Appreciate that. So next, I see that we have Kathleen O'Donnell with your hand raised. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kathleen O'Donnell, Precinct 7 and member of the Planning Board. And I thank the previous speaker for the report on the progress or lack thereof by the bylaw review committee. I have to say that in my practice, I am on many websites in many towns throughout the Commonwealth. And it is in my experience that ours is pretty terrible. And the fact that an applicant of a 40B project, as the previous speaker had pointed out, doesn't get a complete set of our zoning bylaws before they file an application is just sad. And so I really would expect that we would have had somebody from the planning board on this committee to help with this process. And I note that there is no member of the planning board committee on this bylaw review committee, and we have a big chunk of it, or a member of the zoning board that's on this committee. And so if it's a problem of staffing, I would suggest that perhaps maybe there be more members. And I certainly feel that the bylaw committee review committee should be sending us copies of what they're working on and not waiting until 2 minutes before town meeting for us to take a look at it. So that's just a request on my part. As I said, I'm pretty frustrated about the fact that our zoning code is a mess to read. It's not very well organized at all. And it's pretty hard to, nobody, unless they absolutely had to, would read the whole thing. So I would hope that this process would help improve that situation. And I thank the committee for its work.
Thank you, Ms. O'Donnell. A question came up during that dialogue about fall town meeting, and just for the benefit of the body, it is currently scheduled for Monday, October 15th. Now, let's see. Mr. Walker, you wish to be recognized? You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Leroy Walker, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 10. Mr. Moderator, given the previous request, in your capacity as Associate Moderator, I would ask that you convey to our regular moderator that a consideration of the membership of the Bylaw Review Committee might be in order, given that we're thinking about this extension, and that since that committee is appointed by the moderator, that you and he might give consideration to the request that was previously made, which is that perhaps a member from the planning board and or the appeals committee might also be on that body. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Good point, and I will pass that on to our, not just regular, our elected town moderator, and I'm sure that he will take that into full advisement and work with Mr. Mullen and others to work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're not long into the evening, and your associate moderator has already made an error that I'd like to correct. The fall town meeting is Monday, October 25th, not the 15th. The 15th is a Friday, I'm told, so my apologies. Okay, next, waiting to speak, I see is Alexander Whiteside. Mr. Whiteside, you are recognized. Mr. Whiteside, I don't think you're muted. If you'd like to address the body, you have the floor. All right, I'll assume that Mr. Whiteside was not intentionally raising his hand. Okay, I see no others with their hands raised. I would remind the body that this just requires a simple majority. And with that, I would like to ask for the poll to be put up and ask that all those in favor of the motion before the body, please signify by voting yes. All opposed, please vote no. And all abstaining, vote abstain. And I'd like to open up the phones. All of those on the phone that wish to vote yes, say aye.
Aye.
All those on the phone who wish to vote no. Okay, thank you. We'll close the phones. Okay, so the poll is up. We have 91% of the bodies, or 190 members, have voted yes. We have 9% of the body, or 18 members that have voted no, and we have 1 abstain. That is a majority vote. The motion passes. Thank you. Okay, next we have, it actually is the first, I think, of 3 that are coming up, a citizen's petition. The recommendation by our warrant committee is that the town vote no. For clarity, let me read the article, and then I'm going to recognize the first speaker who is asked prior to be able to address the body. So Article 46 is to help longtime retired Milton residents. It is proposed that the residents that have paid real estate taxes in the town for a minimum of 35 years and have not had a child in the Milton school system for 25 years be exempt from all overrides, whether voted on or allowed by law, i.e. Proposition 2.5. Additionally, the residents must be of full retirement age as defined by the Social Security Administration. Again, this is submitted by a citizen's petition. The following is the list of the first 10 citizens who signed the petition, and their names are in the warrant. I don't believe I would need to read those unless somebody objects. Seeing no objections. And just to remind you, it's recommended the town vote no. And Mr. Steven Salutis, I understand you'd like to address the body. You're recognized.
That is correct. Steve Salutis, Precinct 9, Milton resident. This is mainly because Proposition 2.5, it is a 2.5% increase in taxes. But over 12 years or so, let's say from 2010 to present, it's a 31% increase on your real estate taxes. If this continues to go on, I'm just using this as an example, okay? On the other hand, if I look at Social Security increases for the same period of time, it's only a 17% increase. So once people retire, they have a finite amount of money to work with. And so basically, in that period of time, the town is raising the taxes by 31%. Social Security is only giving an increase of 17%. And of course, everybody has savings, but we don't want to get into a situation where we're in, let's say, we're in the situation of Article 39 or 40, where basically we're not paying any taxes whatsoever. We want to pay taxes, we just want to pay taxes at a reduced rate. So this is primarily to allow seniors to live and stay in the house, in their homes, and give them a better quality of life and independence. But also, we also feel that this wouldn't even take place till residents reach the age of approximately 75 plus or minus 2 years, based on people that we've polled and basically the signers, if you will, or in the citizens' position. This is all being really brought about because of all the different increases in the town. We got the CPA now, we got the stormwater fees, we got incremental water bills that are beyond the MWR increases. And, senior citizens actually stabilize the growth of the town, okay? Because there might be only one or two people in a house, but when we leave at some point in time, there'll be 4, 5, who knows? So we're just trying to get a little bit of break for some of the senior citizens. We could probably there probably may be a limit. We don't know. But this article was designed to come up with a method to achieve a reasonable approach to allow senior citizens to live in the house without going to the fact of Articles 39 and 40, where basically we're not paying any taxes whatsoever. And that's basically it. And that's all I have to say. I didn't realize, of course, we're in violation of some state laws. But, if the town can issue fees, for issue tax breaks for corporations and stuff like that, and issue fees, they should be able to issue credits as easily. And that's it. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chalutis.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for the benefit of the town meeting members, when we have somebody address the body that is not a town meeting member, they typically give their address. Mr. Chalutis's address is right there in our warranted 120 Hilltop Street. So now
I didn't know that.
No, I understand. That's why I said it. Not to worry, Mr. Chalutis. That would have been my responsibility to clear up. I see that Catherine Levy, you wish to speak. You're recognized.
Yes. I like the idea of seniors being exempt from some of the steep increases with the overrides, and it has a lot of merit. It helps certainly to keep the seniors in their homes. The town should move forward to find a way to assist the elderly. I'm elderly. I may not always think that way, but I am. I've been in the town, paid taxes for more than 35 years, and I've never had children in the schools. I don't mind helping, but as the previous speaker said, there's a lot of other fees, and the income level of someone that's retired does not go up significantly. Certainly, if we vacate our homes and move elsewhere, there'll be an increase in the number of people that you're serving in the town. And I think that this certainly deserves a lot of consideration and merit if it doesn't pass tonight. Certainly, like the 39 and 40, there needs to be a place for this kind of thinking to give some credit for the senior citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Mr. Asher, George Asher, you're next. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. George Asher, Chair Warrant Committee, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6. I just want to draw attention to the members of the town meeting that this article, as proposed, violates the Home Rule Amendment to the Constitution of the Commonwealth written by John Adams. And doing so, it would create an exemption, real estate tax exemption at the local level without the consent of legislature, okay? The legislature controls taxation and any exemptions related to it. If we were, as a town meeting, to pass this petition, well-intentioned as it is, and we were delighted to have Mr. Chalutis and his ideas come and present to us, our research, supported by opinion of town council, is that the Attorney General office would immediately reject this bylaw. If there is a movement for an exemption of this nature, the proper way to do it would be through our state representatives and to see how they would be able to push this through, and then it could possibly be considered by town meeting. But I think to some extent the warrant committee felt that this was not something viable, and it was kind of clear cut that this would be nothing we could recommend. And I just wanted to bring the attention of the town meeting to page 105 and the comment that that illustrates this rather clearly. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Asher. I see Michael Chinman. You wish to speak? You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Michael Chinman, Precinct 2. I think creating a second-class level of citizen is just a reprehensible idea. And this proposal, it's not laudatory to say that seniors who have lived in town less than 35 years are second class and get treated worse than persons who lived here for 35 years. That's a terrible idea. I'm saddened that this was proposed and is being considered. I think it should be voted down quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Walker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Leroy Walker, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 10. Mr. Moderator, I believe that Mr. Asher answered my question, but I would just ask Town Council to confirm. So as I understand Mr. Asher's comments, Town Meeting does not have the authority to approve this article, which would exempt certain members of the town, certain residents of the town from tax obligations that might be approved by a Proposition 2.5 override. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Walker. I refer to Kevin Freitag, Town Council. You're recognized.
He's on mute.
Indeed. Mr. Freitag, you're recognized. Try that. Oh, 1 second. Sir, they can't hear you. If you'd like to come up here, you're more than welcome. Mr. Freitag, it's a lonely spot up here, so I'm glad to have you come by for a visit.
Good evening, members of town meeting. Kevin Freitag from the Office of Town Council. Mr. Asher is exactly correct. The jurisdiction over real estate taxes lies within the state legislature and not at the local level. So this article is just, it's not legally possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. I see we have Diane DiTullio Agostino, you wish to be recognized? You're recognized.
Good evening, Diane DiTullio Agostino, Precinct 9 and Chair of the Commission on Disability. First of all, when I read this, for anyone who knows me, I have an avid golfer who's my spouse. And when I read it, I immediately related it to memberships at a golf club. Because when you have been a member for X number of years and you have paid your dues and assisted the club along the way with all sorts of bonds to improve the club, similar to bonds that help build our schools, then you do have the opportunity to go to the next level to get a reduced rate. So I find this article submitted by all of my neighbors very interesting. It's thought-provoking, and it should be commended for making us think about what more could we do. And I do want to add, if the Board of Selectmen somehow could look into a committee on studying what we can do for senior citizens, because I believe Mr. Talutis mentioned that keeping seniors in their homes does in fact assist us as far as looking at how big the schools get. Within our neighborhood, all the little ranches are now housing 4 to 5 bedroom houses and many, many children. And about 15 years ago, I actually asked the assessor for a list of all the ranch houses in the town of Milton, because from that list, you could pretty much see, no matter how big your plot of land, the larger homes were being built. So I find this citizens petition, you know, a start to thinking about what can we do, not just for the seniors though, but also for those who are disabled. I just have heard over the years from several young residents, and whether it's been, you know, a disability due to a car accident or a disability such as cancer or some other disability, all of a sudden they're in their house and they could lose their house because of an unexpected disabling situation. So on behalf of those two concerns, I hope that maybe the Board of Selectmen or Select Board would look into what more we could do to assist those seniors who have put so much into making Milton the town that it is. And I do think it's not easy for citizens to always speak up, and I appreciate that they have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Augustino. So folks, just for clarity, I see that we have three hands raised still. And one of those is Kathleen Lavery. Kathleen, just so you know, I do see your hand is raised. That is our tradition. Oh, it is no longer raised. Okay. I was gonna say, as our tradition, we allow everyone to speak once first and then go back. So Mr. Fundling, Jay Fundling, you are recognized.
Hi, Jay Fundling, Town Meeting Member Precinct 3. To the people who put this forward, I would like to remind you that we do have a program in town for income or for property tax deferment for senior citizens with limited income. And we made 2 votes last night to improve that program. So hopefully you will encourage the seniors in your lives who need help with their property taxes to explore this program, which we have improved, and take advantage of that. Thank you, but I will be voting no on this article.
Thank you, Mr. Fundling. And I see we have Scott Johnson, you're recognized.
Good evening, Scott Johnson, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 9. I want to endorse the statements made by Ms. D'Agostino. I think that when we have a Prop 2.5 override, it is generally speaking made for the schools. That's usually what drives it more than anything. These people are not using those services. They haven't used them according to this kind of an idea for 25 years. They add a diverse dynamic to our population in the town. And I agree that we should try to see about getting the selectmen to go forward and try to maybe help them facilitate a committee of some sort with the legislature of the state. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Sheila Varela, you are recognized.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sheila Varela, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. I just want to say that I definitely will have a no vote on this. And even for the fellow town meeting members who have spoken about having committees to look into this, as was previously stated, we've already addressed the other articles that are improving options that seniors have to help them with that. And I have to say that until this town continues to have better, smart, commercial tax-based growth in this town with the overpopulation that we now see it, I just don't see how we could ever, even if it was legal for us to vote on this tonight, to have that as an option and maintain the quality of life and the services that we have in town. So I recommend, I know it's not even legally possible for us to do it, but I wouldn't even want any kind of committee put together for it, especially as the previous speaker said, we already have things for seniors to look into. And with having one of the lowest commercial tax bases in town, it's just a no way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Varela. All right, well, so we've got a number of other town meeting members who are raising their hand wishing to speak. Kathleen Potter, you're recognized.
Kathleen Potter, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 4. I rise to point out to a previous speaker that although a lot of the overrides are for the schools, they're also for firefighters, they're for police, they're for Department of the Public Works Department. And even if you do raise money in an override for a school project, that money then goes back into the regular town budget and it doesn't automatically go for the schools. So the schools have time and time again fought to raise tax dollars and money for the town, and they get the money for the town, and then the town gets the benefit of all of that. Also, the money that the the money that the firehouses are using is money that a lot of people worked very hard for so that we could rebuild our schools. And I firmly support that using that money. I voted for the Hurley amendment so that we could use that, retain those tax dollars from the when we rebuilt all 6 of our schools at the turn of the century. I worked hard for that money then. I supported that we retain that money for taxes, and I fully support that we're using that money for the firehouses now. But overrides are not exclusively for the schools. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Potter. James Mulligan, you're recognized.
Thank you. Jim Mulligan, Precinct 2. Mr. Moderator, my question would be, what would this cost the town? I don't plan to vote yes on this, but I'd be interested to know what, if the people who are proposing this had any idea what this would cost the town. Additionally, you know, I don't even like the terms of it, because on top of that, yeah, I got married when I was in my late 30s. I had children when I was in my 40s. I will probably honestly be dead before I'd ever be eligible for this. To some extent, I think it's almost age discriminatory against people who decided to get married later in life. So if they have any idea what it would cost, I'd love to know.
Well, first, Mr. Mulligan, I'd like to wish you a long, healthy life.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I appreciate that.
Okay. And I'm not sure that, and clearly I think, as you understand, it's a tough question to answer. I don't know if Mr. Touloudis would have any idea if they were able to do any analysis, but I've asked Mr. Touloudis if you were.
Mr. Moderator, honestly, I don't even need an answer. I'm going to vote no. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Alessandra Higgins, you're recognized.
Hi, Alessandra Higgins, Precinct 6, town meeting member. Besides all the points that everybody else have brought up and the fact that we can't even legally vote on this, I just want to bring up the fact that it becomes a slippery slope. Because what about the people that are going to bring up the fact that, oh, my kids don't even go to school, Milton. I'm paying taxes. My kids don't even go to school, Milton. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Higgins. Deborah Felton, you're recognized.
Deborah Felton, Precinct 2 town meeting member. This just feels so discriminatory on its face. We live in a community, the entire town of Milton, and there are many things that many people don't use, but as a citizen of a community, it is our responsibility to pay for everything that the community provides, whether it's the senior center or the cemetery, or as somebody just mentioned, some people don't send their kids to school. This is really, I agree, such a slippery slope. It's very disturbing. Thank you. And I will vote no.
Thank you, Ms. Felton. Okay. I see Diane Tutulio Agostino. Do you wish to speak again? You're the only hand I see raised.
Yes, Diane Tutulio Agostino, Chair of the Milton Commission on Disability. And I just want to clarify, so there's no misunderstanding of the suggestion that was presented, that the Board of Selectmen would not just look into possibly if this could ever be legal, but into how else. And I appreciate that one of the prior town meeting members did remind us and reminded those senior citizens who may be listening that we did add some additional programs for them. But I think that looking at the overall situation in the town, several questions, really good questions, were raised by everyone who knows we're voting no because it's not legal. And those questions would require an analysis. As I said, you know, look at how many ranch houses are in the town, how many seniors are living in them. There are so many avenues that could be beneficial to us to not keep increasing and having to build more and more schools, but maybe by assisting some seniors in additional ways that other towns have thought of that we haven't. So it's not, we don't have the answers to all these questions, and it doesn't hurt to brainstorm. We've certainly brainstormed many different ideas over the years. So don't just dismiss a budding idea. You may not like the wording, you might not like the idea. It's not legal, it's not going to pass, but it's a budding thought that we should all appreciate. It takes a lot for citizens to take the time to speak up.
Thank you, Mrs. Agostino. Okay, folks, your moderator sees no one waiting and we want to move to a vote. Before we do, I want to explain that basically I'm going to be asking you if you're interested in supporting the article as written and read by your moderator, that you will vote yes. But if you're in support of the warrant committee's recommendation that the town vote no, you will vote no. And for the reasons they have clarified both in the warrant and when Mr. Asher spoke up. So let's put the poll up, please. All those in favor of the motion before the body, please signify by voting yes. All opposed, who are consistent with what your warrant committee wants, will please vote no. All abstaining, vote abstain. And if we can open up the telephone. All those on the phone who wish to vote yes, say aye.
Aye.
All those on the phone who wish to vote no, say no. Okay, thank you. Let's close the phones. And let's close the polls. Okay, so this had required a majority vote. I should have probably clarified that, my apology, but the yes vote, 12% or 25 members voted yes. The no vote, 185 town meeting members voted no, 87%, and 3 abstained. So the motion fails. Thank you. We're moving on to Article 47, another citizen's petition. And a second to last article, I might point out. And as the previous one, it's a citizen's petition, but the recommendation of the warrant committee is to vote no. So as such, I'm going to read the article so the town meeting members know for clarity what it was asking. Just a reminder, all trash and recycling needs to be placed curbside either the night before or prior to 7 a.m. Collection time is subject to change due to the variety of reasons such as equipment problems. Also, your carts should not be set out before 7 the night before, prior to the collection, and carts should be removed from the curb within 24 hours of your set out. It was submitted as a citizen's petition, submitted by the following citizens signing the petition, and the list is there, and I think actually I'll quickly read it. It's Eileen Franklin, Cortland Circle, Gianna Coppola, Cortland Circle, in fact, all the residents from Cortland Circle, Susan Roman, Michael Fay, Francis McInnes, Marguerite Richardson, Coleman Joyce, Bridget Rafferty, Rick Capola, and Danielle Shirley. And does anyone wish to speak to this motion? Okay, seeing none. Oh, I apologize. Thank you. Rachel Riccadella, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Just a very quick question from me. This is Rachel Riccardella, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 3. I'm actually just a bit confused what sort of would be the outcome of this. So is this to change a bylaw? Or is this just simply a friendly reminder from some of our neighbors about what might be neighborly behavior? But I'm sort of not really understanding what the town action would be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So not sure we have any of the residents that might explain their intent or that address that question. I see Mr. Asher, your hand is raised. Thank you. You're recognized.
Mr. Moderator, George Asher, Chair Warrant Committee, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6. To the town meeting member's question, this was precisely what we asked when Ms. Franklin came and addressed it to us. There was really no, we pointed out that the town already had bylaws that address this issue, and we weren't quite sure what we could do. Therefore, it really was a point that we didn't feel we could add any value to, because it really did seem like it was a neighborhood issue that led to a fair degree of frustration on the part of the signatories. And this is one reason why the warrant committee didn't feel in its present form it was actionable. So therefore, we recommended a vote of no on this particular article.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Asher.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Asher. Okay, folks, seeing no other hands raised, much like the previous question, if you are in support of the article as I read, you will vote yes. If you are in support of the recommendation of the warrant committee, you will vote no. I'd ask that the poll be put up. This, by the way, is a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion before the body, please signify by voting yes. All those opposed in support of the position of the warrant committee, please vote no. All abstaining, please vote abstain. And can we open up the phones? All those in favor on the phones signify by saying aye. All those opposed on the phone say no.
No.
Okay, thank you. Let's close the phones. Okay, so the poll is, we had 12 town meeting members vote yes, 6%. We had 197 and 92% vote no, and we had 2% abstain. So the motion fails. Thank you. And folks, we are about to enter into the last article of the evening of the meeting, and I'm going to recognize oh, I have a point of order. I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Felton, you're recognized for a point of order.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for giving me permission to speak. Deborah Felton, town meeting member, precinct 2. I just want to thank Mike Lynch, who's the executive director of Milton Access TV, for his commitment to making town meeting work smoothly on this Zoom platform. As much as we all like seeing each other during the pandemic, this has been the next best thing. And I think he's really gone above and beyond, like everybody else has during the pandemic, but I did want to thank him specifically.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Felton. I guess as your moderator, I first point out that's not a point of order, but I think it's valuable comments, well-deserved. I must tell you, as your moderator, I would just add also that our elected moderator, Mr. Hiss, makes this conducting a meeting with Zoom look easy. I'm sweating and nervous up here. I'm doing my best to keep up, but there's a whole room of people supporting us here, and it's terrific, as it has been in the history of this town. Okay, so folks, we're about to move to the last article, and there's another couple items. One I'm going to have to address before we read the article itself, but before I do that, I would like to recognize the chair of our select board, Melinda Collins.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Melinda Collins, Select Board Chair, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 9. I'd like to thank the Warrant Committee for its dedicated work on this warrant, for its spirited debate and perseverance in getting the warrant into the best shape possible for a town meeting, and for their clarification and guidance throughout town meeting on their recommendations. The Warrant Committee truly is the eyes and ears of town meeting and really is an indispensable feature of our democracy. Thank you again, and especially to Chair Asher, who's spent countless hours making sure that meetings were going to get off to a good start and run smoothly. And also, I'd like to give a special thanks to Lynn Hoy, who also just took great care with putting the warrant together and was patient with all the last minute changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Appreciate that. Okay, members, a quick note before we get into Article 48, and that is that one of the 10 citizens listed as a petition signature in the warrant, this is, by the way, is a note from our town clerk, Susan Galvin. So was not one of the 10 citizens listed as a petition signature in the warrant was not a qualified voter. As such, their name should not have appeared in the warrant. Nevertheless, there were a total of 18 certified voters, and the article still stands. Attorney Freitag suggested that I make mention of this, and I have just complied with that. I also recognize that we have a change, I guess what we would typically refer to as a green sheet that's in here. And I've been advised by town council there's we would normally have a bylaw change like this, a 2/3 vote. It's a little bit different, and I'd recognize Attorney Freitag to explain. Mr. Freitag is rightfully asked me to listen to the proposed amendment first, and then he can make his comments. So first, do we have the amendment to post? All right, now that we have that up, I guess I'd like to recognize, I see Mr. Asher, your hand is up. Then I do want to recognize the planning board to comment on this, but Mr. Asher, your hand is down. So I guess Denny Swenson from the planning board, I'd like to recognize you.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you, Moderator Walsh. Jenny Swenson, a chair of the planning board, town meeting member precinct 5. I did want to, if you would like, Moderator Walsh, did you want me to explain simple majority or 2/3 vote on this particular article? Is that what you were hoping?
Thank you. Sorry. So actually,
or did you want me to save that for later?
why don't we hold on to that? I am going to, as we start the dialogue, at some point, I'm going to recognize somebody to make this a motion to amend what's before the body and get that seconded. So perhaps you would like to take the opportunity to make that motion.
It's so moved.
All right. Do I have a second? I'm looking feverishly. Perhaps. We have a second. Thank you. So the motion to amend what's in your warrant to what's in front of you on your screens has been made and seconded. So that is a motion to just amend the warrant. We're going to take that to a hold on one second. Town clerk is here to save me and remind me that the warrant committee made that. It's a friendly amendment. As such, it's adopted. I thank you. So now that is the main motion in front of the body. And go back to that our planning board to, I'm a timeout. Hold on, folks. Good news, we're on our last article, but just give me a minute. Thank you. Mr. Asher, your moderator almost made the grievous mistake of not recognizing the warrant committee to see what their position would be on the motion to amend, the friendly amendment that's been accepted by the planning board. So Mr. Asher, do you have the will of the warrant committee?
We will engage in the vote where we had received this last bit just before the meeting and we're about to take the vote. So if you can bear with us just a bit, Mr. Moderator.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Asher. So while the warrant committee spends their time deliberating this, I see no reason why we can't move forward and recognize Ned Cochran to address the motion in front of the body, save time. So Mr. Cochran, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, town meeting members, Ned Cochran, Precinct 3. And let me start with a couple of disclosures. First, as the lead signator, I am counsel to Winter Valley, which is the senior facility on Canton Avenue and is the direct beneficiary of this proposed amendment. I'm also counsel to a group of neighbors who abut Winter Valley and who have been fighting one of the large 40B proposals at 648 Canton Avenue. It's one of the proposals being pursued by the Tamposi development family. And representing that neighborhood group in opposition to that 40B. And I represent sort of both sides of the fence, if you will, folks on one side of the fence of, to Winter Valley and Winter Valley as well. And I can represent that my clients on the side of the fence, on the other side of the fence from Winter Valley, are fully supportive of this proposal. And indeed, 8 of the 18 signatories that you referenced, Mr. Moderator, are clients who live on either Holmes Lane or on Mergewood Road, which is the private way, also known as Canton Ave Extension. I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation to present at such time as you feel it appropriate, Mr. Moderator.
I think it's appropriate now. And again, for the members' benefit, we will hear the position of the Warrant Committee when they're ready. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Mr. Moderator, the Warrant Committee is ready.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Asher, you're recognized.
George Asher, Chair Warrant Committee, Town Meeting Member Precinct 6. The Warrant Committee assents unanimously with 1 abstention to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Asher. Appreciate that. And now, Mr. Corcoran, with the consent and support of the Warrant Committee, you can make your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I do, as I introduced preliminarily at a meeting of the Planning Board this evening, there were some final details associated with this amendment. As part of that, I did represent to the Planning Board, and I'm representing to the town meeting that there will be a 55-foot setback associated with the new building that's being proposed here. And a written agreement between Winter Valley and the 3 direct abutters, who I also represent, relative to that fact, as well as an agreement relative to a maximum height if the building is pursued with a flat roof as opposed to a pitched roof. And I'll demonstrate that a little bit later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So Article 48 is a citizens petition that would propose to amend the Residence D1 zoning bylaw. That bylaw applies to 2 significant properties in town, Winter Valley and Home Inc. They are nonprofit entities that provide senior housing age 62 and over and/or handicapped housing. In the case of Winter Valley, Winter Valley is the direct entity involved in this matter that would authorize a new building with up to 36 affordable senior housing units with a height and a slope roof that is maxed at 37.5 feet to the midpoint of that slope, or to 45 feet as the maximum height to the ridge of a slope roof. We are also agreeing by written agreement to a side yard setback from the closest abutters to 55 feet, and the height would be consistent with the height that is authorized for Fuller Village in the town's Residence D2 zoning district. Next slide, please. A little bit about Winter Valley. It is a HUD-financed senior living facility. It has 160 units on a 24-acre campus just off of Canton Avenue. All 160 of those units are affordable. There are 172 occupants. The average age is 79. 76% of the occupants are women and 34% of the occupants are minorities. 93% of those households are at or below 50% of area median income. Area median income is a term of art used in the affordable housing world. And we think of AMI being required at 80% minimum for units to be included on the town's subsidized housing inventory. It is the AMI that is considered when projects are filed under the 40B provision. The last building was built in 1989 with 32 units. It was done pursuant to a 1989 zoning amendment that authorized That increase, that new building and an additional 32 units done in relation to a set of agreements reached with the town and with butters to the property. There is a significant waiting list for new tenants. Winter Valley is preparing to apply to HUD for financing for a new building and needs to know that it has the ability to move forward under this proposal. Next slide, please. Currently, quick overview of our affordable housing statistics. We're at 477 affordable unit. That's less than 5% of the town's total housing stock. Winter Valley provides 160 units of affordable. That equals 30% of the total of the town's affordable units. Fuller Village provides an additional 140. That's 30%. So between those two facilities, the combined total of 300, they provide 64% of the town's affordable housing units. Unquity House, also owned by Milton Residence for the Elderly, which is a sister entity with Winter Valley, provides a significant number of additional. So those three entities provide a substantial majority of the total number of affordable units in town. The 36 units that would be provided here will all count on the state subsidized housing inventory and would be built without the need to produce up to 108 other market rate units if it were built under Chapter 40B. Generally, in speaking, under a 40B proposal, the developer has to produce a minimum of 25% of the total units in a development as affordables. Needs the revenue from 75% of the market rate units. In this case, you would need 144 total units to provide the 36 new affordables. Here we get 36 new units without the impact of additional market rate units. Next slide, please. This is an aerial of the Winter Valley campus. I'm sure many of us drive by the Winter Valley entrance on Canton Avenue, not far from Highland Street and Town Hall. Don't really realize what this campus holds. It is 24 acres. It is a fairly long piece of property. Just under the word M in the letter M in campus is the entry off of Canton Avenue. Follow a site drive that passes through the middle of the site. There are 5 main buildings that house up to this 160 units. And towards the bottom of the sheet you can see building 5, which is the last building built in 1990 pursuant to the 1989 bylaw change. Next slide, please. This is a map of the same area taken from the town's GIS website. The area outlined in yellow and shaded in gray is the Winter Valley campus. You can see that it also provides frontage onto Highland Street, and there's a secondary egress onto Highland Street just opposite the Milton Hospital, which you can see up in the right-hand corner. You can see that there's a fairly long tail to the property that becomes important here. There are, as part of the 1989 zoning, there were 2 significant conservation restrictions that were put over the property, which I'll show in greater detail in a moment. But that area of the tail was the area that was the subject to the conservation restrictions, one of which was 30 years in length. That 30 years has expired and is made possible for this new development on a 2-acre portion of the property. As I said, I represent a substantial number of abutters to Winter Valley. You can see Holmes Lane, which is just to the left. That is a private way that comes up off of Canton Avenue. A number of the Holmes Lane residents are signatories to the citizens petition. The next thing you see is sort of a rectangular property with a small orange rectangle in the middle of it. That is 648 Canton Avenue. Immediately behind that is 652 Canton Avenue. Those are the 2 properties that are subject to the 40B applications that have been filed by the Tim Posies. In combination, they're proposing 200 units of housing. in several large buildings, which are way out of scale, way out of whack for what you would consider to be reasonable. And that is the project that the abutters are opposing. The next long driveway in is what we call Mergewood Road. It's a private way. And as you come towards the lower portion to the right, there are 3 properties that abut the property here. They are 3 clients who have specifically signed off on this project, that have waived a conflict of interest that I would have otherwise, and are fully supportive of the application here. Next slide, please. This is sort of a close-up. As you can see, I've outlined, I've named, if you start on the left, you see Tamposi, those are 648 and 652 Canton Avenue properties. Then you see Janiga, Yandel, and Wernerfeld. They are the 3 direct abutters to this portion of the property, most importantly, the Yandels. And on the right-hand side, you see property of the BID Milton Hospital, which wraps, which fully abuts this portion of the property. In the middle, you see Building 5, and then you see a square that I've labeled 30-year temp CR. That is the location of the new building. That is the area that was subject to the 30-year temporary conservation restriction, which is now expired. And below that, you see permanent CR. That is a 4.5-acre parcel that is subject to a permanent conservation restriction that was also granted to the town at the same time that the 30-year conservation restriction was imposed. Next slide, please. This is an aerial of a close-up showing the location of the layout of the new building. The building is proposed to be set diagonally to the abutting property owners so that the bulk of the building slides away in 2 directions. You'll also see that down on the right-hand corner is a darker green area. And if you turn to the next slide, you can see there's what the area that would have been green just coming into the lower right-hand corner of this lot is a wetland that comes from the area that is the subject of the permanent conservation restriction. Drawn around that are 2 concentric circles. One is 25 feet and the other is 100 feet. The 25-foot setback is the area of no disturbance under the town's conservation bylaw. And the larger circle shows the 100-foot setback from the wetland. That is an area that can be developed, but only in accordance with approval of the Conservation Commission. We're showing on the left-hand side the point of property, the point of the building that is closest to the Yandels is 55 feet. We are agreeing to hold that distance at a minimum. And as we begin work with the Conservation Commission, we'll be looking for permission to slide that building towards the 100-foot and perhaps inside the 100-foot setback in order to further remove the bulk of the building particularly from the Yandels. Obviously it'll take, it's a consideration of competing interests and impacts, but we look forward to working with the Conservation Commission. In fact, next Tuesday evening, tonight we were on, but because of town meeting, the Conservation Commission meeting has been moved to next Wednesday. We'll begin discussions with the Conservation Commission with a plan that will show where the wetlands are located, and requesting that the Conservation Commission agree with the way that the wetlands have been identified on the plan.
Mr. Cochran, if I may interrupt, and for the benefit of the town meeting members, Mr. Cochran has well notified the moderator and others that he would have this presentation. He would be exceeding the 5 minutes. But I would ask that Mr. Cochran, to your best ability, if you could soon wrap up the presentation.
Got 2 more slides, Mr. So if you move to the next slide, showing what the building would look like. It's 3 stories with a gabled roof. We'll be working hard with the architect to vary the appearance of that building, particularly the roof line. But this is the appearance of the building as it would appear if you were driving into the site. And then the next slide quickly consider the proposed height in the final language of the bylaw is slightly different than what you see in that first bullet, but was ironed out this evening. The proposed height would be 3.5 stories, 3 stories of occupied space with the gabled roof above, and a maximum height to either a midpoint of 37.5 feet to the midpoint of the sloping roof, or a ridge that is at maximum of 45 feet in height. As I said earlier, that is consistent with the height limitations for Fuller Village. Building setback will be set and maintained at 55 feet. It is approximately 1,600 feet from Canton Avenue, 650 feet from Highland Street. The building is larger than Building 5, and therefore the height is taller for a couple of reasons. One, Building 5, built in the 1990s, was not subject to the same accessibility requirements. That building, for example, does not have accessible bathrooms, accessible kitchens, does not have dishwashers. There are 9 studio units in that building. The preference today is for 1 and 2 bedrooms with dishwashers, and a requirement that each bathroom be fully accessible and each kitchen be fully accessible. In that case, the units are all bigger, and that occasions a bigger building and a larger roof to match that. Last slide, please. So we have an extensive remaining process to go through. We appreciate the effort of neighbors, the planning board, the warrant committee, the select board, who have weighed in extensively to date. This is the first step in a parallel process. We will be filing, we think we have to file for a special permit with the Board of Appeals. We know we have to file for site plan approval with the planning board. And then we know that we have to pursue an order of conditions regarding wetlands with the Conservation Commission. We'll be looking forward to engaging directly with neighbors in design issues and moving forward through this process. We appreciate your time, and we would appreciate a favorable vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. And ironically, I would just point out for the body that Mr. Cochran had estimated that he would need a 15-minute presentation. I just hit my stopwatch and it was 14 minutes and 53 seconds. So very impressive. At this point, I'd like to recognize the chair of our planning board, Denny Swinson, for the comments relative to the proposal.
Thank you, Moderator Walsh. Denny Swinson, Planning Board Chair, Town Meeting Member Precinct 5. The Planning Board recommends the town meeting approve Article 48. And did you want me to explain the simple majority or 2/3 vote?
Yes, I would. So just as by way of introduction, typically our planning board articles, our zoning articles require 2/3 vote. On a rare occasion, there's an opportunity where it might not. Ms. Swinson, if you would go ahead and explain that, and then I would look to town council to weigh in on it as well. Thank you.
Okay. Pursuant to changes to Section 5 of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, the Zoning Act, made by Chapter 538 of the Acts of 2020, certain zoning amendments require a simple majority vote rather than a 2/3 vote. Because this article allows for multifamily housing in an eligible location and changes dimensional standards to all for construction of additional residential units, the planning board believes that this article requires a simple majority vote.
Thank you for that clear explanation. And just for the benefit of the town meeting members, I'll turn to town council, Mr. Freitag, to hear your position on that observation.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I support the position of the planning board.
Thank you, Council Freitag. Okay, Ms. Swenson, are your comments complete? Should we move to the list of questioners?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
I see next in order we have Webb Collins. Webb, you're recognized.
Am I now unmuted?
Yes, Mr. Collins, I can hear you perfectly.
I'd like to talk in big picture on this article. I was on the warrant committee with the creation of the concept of Residence D zoning. And I think it's important for the town meeting members to understand the concept of that zoning. It involves affordable housing and it's a large lot district. The raising of a height that we're talking about here to 45 feet would normally be inconsistent with zoning, but in this particular instance, under the concept of residence D for the town of Milton, is very consistent and is something that should be, in my opinion, supported. I apologize for not saying I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 9, and I'm also on the board of directors of Fuller Village. And the reason for putting this before you and these thoughts are because there is adjoining land to this site that perhaps some point in time could be melded in, and this could become a large opportunity for us to meet our Chapter 40B issue. And it's a huge, important 40B issue item where we're putting the units that are being built without any corresponding deficit of additional units required. Thank you very much, and I urge everyone to vote yes on this article.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. I recognize Virginia King. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Virginia Donahue King, Precinct 3. I am not against Winter Valley at all. I think it's proven to be a real asset to people that want to stay in Milton but get rid of their big house. And I've been inside of the apartments. I've known people that live there, and they're tasteful and well appointed, and I think it's a great asset to the town. However, this is a major change to the zoning bylaw. Normally, zoning amendments come through the planning board. Why is this not coming from the planning board? Why is this coming from an agent for the beneficiary of this change? This article applies not just to Winter Valley, but it becomes part of the town-wide zoning bylaw. Do we want to do this? Have we checked into where this might impact us? Has there been any hearing for residents to give their opinions on this? Has this been afforded the vetting that other changes in the zoning bylaw have been given by the planning board to the public? I have there's a lot of questions there. I realize that. What I have two specific questions that I'd like answered before voting. I'd certainly like the other questions answered as well. I don't know if I can expect that tonight or not, but there's two questions before voting. One is, can a citizen proposed article be modified at town meeting? Is that something that is allowed or not? And let's see, what is, I was unsure. I'd like to go back to the second to the last slide that was previously shown by a town meeting member that was talking about the height situation, and I believe it said that the height would be 37.5 feet at a midpoint on that fourth floor, but that we were putting in 37.5 feet in the modification under section 5C, and I'd like some clarification on that, please. Hello, is anyone there?
I apologize. Your moderator stepped away just for a minute to try to arrange for an answer to one of your questions.
I thought you adjourned without me.
Absolutely not. Thank you. So I think I have all your questions, and I'd like to start pursuing answers to them. Is that correct? Or have you had your points in there?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I
thank
do.
you. Okay, so I guess I could look to the first couple of major questions were, why was this not a planning board article? And why no hearing on it? If it had been a planning board article, it would have had a hearing on it. I think that's the gist of the first section. I don't know if the plan wants to weigh in on that. Yes, Denny Swinson, you are recognized.
Thank you, Moderator Walsh. Denny Swenson, Planning Board Chair, Town Meeting Member Precinct 5. The representative, Mr. Corcoran, came before the Planning Board, and we had a public meeting. But I think it's best for Ned Corcoran to answer the town meeting members' questions, because it's his petition. It's a citizen's petition, not a planning board petition.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Ms. Swinson. I just wanted you to sort of answer
Sure.
with the planning board perspective. Before we go to Mr. Corcoran, I believe as your moderator working with town council, we can address certainly one issue Mrs. King brought up, which is, can a citizen's petition be modified at town meeting? Fair question. I'll recognize town council, Mr. Freitag, for the purpose of addressing that.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kevin Freitag for the Office of Town Council. The citizens petition results in an article that goes on to your warrant. Articles are never amended. The recommendation of the warrant committee, which becomes the vote at town meeting, may be amended so long as it is within the scope of the article. So to your question, whether the citizens petition article can be amended, the article cannot, but there is no request to amend the article before town meeting at this point. The only request is that the recommendation of the warrant committee be amended. And I find that the amendment, which has been accepted by the warrant committee, is within the scope of the article that appears in your warrant and therefore is properly to be considered by the town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freitag. Appreciate that. And Mr. Corcoran, perhaps you could address the meeting members' questions relative to the hearing and the height on that second to last slide.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Mr. Moderator?
Yes, I can, sir.
Okay, thank you. This, I guess a couple of things. One, Winter Valley was preparing actually to file for a variance from the provisions of the D1 zoning when they hired me to take it through that process. We realized that a variance would be difficult to pursue, particularly with the Tamposis, who are direct abutters to the property, and perhaps could challenge. So we looked to change the zoning. We wanted approval of town meeting relative to this outcome, and so we worked with the select board and the planning board to craft this final version of the article. There was a public hearing that was advertised and was held by the planning board on April 26th. So it was advertised in the Milton Times. Notice was provided, I know, to direct abutters, and there were a number of conversations, a number of meetings since with the planning board in public session over the last 2 weeks. And so that's the background and how it went from what was going to be a variance application to a presentation, a citizen's petition before this body.
Thank you, Mr. Corcoran. I'd now turn and ask Virginia King if you had any follow-up before we continue out of speakers.
I do. I have to disagree with town council. There were amendments to this put up in front of us. In fact, I'm looking at them right now. It's on the screen. There's some amendments there. And so I'm befuddled. The amendment says 37.5 feet in height. But
Ms. King, if
But
I
the
could just-
presentation said that 37.5 feet was the midway point on the 4th story. Is that incorrect?
It's not that your observation, I think, is incorrect, and the town council, you should know, has just stepped away. But what I heard the town council, and I know as your moderator to be the case, that the article that's submitted is not what town meeting considers. It's the recommendation that is what's considered. The recommendation can in fact change, whether it's submitted by a citizen petition or any one of the number of boards or committees authorized by the town. And so it's the recommendation that has been amended, not the original article. I don't, did that help?
I would like to confirm that what's in front of me right now that looks like the proposed article, but doesn't say the recommendation of the warrant committee, if that is the warrant committee's recommendation.
Okay.
And then if it is, then why is that 4th floor allowed to go above 37.5 feet? I think we really need to understand this, because I also point out, this is not just for Winter Valley. This changes the entire zoning bylaw for anybody, anywhere. And it might be something that's not quite as likable as Winter Valley. I just want to make sure that this is not something that's going to, you know, a citizen petition and then we run away with it for the next 50 years in Milton.
Okay, so thank you, Ms. King. I'm going to do a couple of things here to try to get some clarity for you. I would like to recognize, if he would be able to, George Asher, for the position of the warrant committee on what you're asking about. In the meantime, I'm going to confer with town council to see if we can address another point. Thank you. Mr. Asher, can you address the member's question, which is the motion before the body supported by the warrant committee?
Mr. Moderator, George Asher, Chair Warrant Committee, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6. The Warrant Committee voted in support of this.
I do have a follow-up.
Before you follow up, Ms. King, so I've just been also told, I think there was an error. What was put up before the body had not said recommended. And so to your point, I'm confused. Did somebody change the article, or is it change to the recommendation? And it looks like that was an error. It is a change to the recommendation. I believe we just heard the chair of the warrant committee say they're supportive. So did you have another follow-up to that?
Yes, I want to know why we're approving that the height cannot exceed 3.5 stories or 37.5 feet. And yet it does. The proposed building does exceed 37.5 feet. And I want to know how we can reconcile this. It just seems kind of odd
Okay,
to have something.
I think I can help here with clarity. First of all, when you say, why are we approving? It hasn't been a vote in front of the town meeting.
I understand that.
May I answer, Mr.?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Cochran.
Thank you. So 2 points. One is the height change only applies in a residence D1 district. Doesn't apply all over town. It only applies to Winter Valley and to Homake. That's number one. 2, the maximum height is 3.5 stories, or a height that is 37.5 feet which is measured to the midpoint of a sloped roof, provided that the maximum height to the ridge of the roof shall not exceed 45 feet. There is nothing in here about a 4th story. It is 3 occupied stories and a sloped roof. And the measurements are similar, but as I understand it from Cheryl Tagayas, who's an architect, it helps the planning board understand how to measure that area within a sloped roof. There's nothing about a 4th story.
But we do know that we're going up 3 flights of stairs to a 4th floor to do that.
No, we're going
No?
up. No, there is no occupied fourth floor. 3 occupied floors served by elevators, and then a roof area, which is sloped. There's no attic.
But the building is then higher than 37.
Building is taller than 37 feet. That is correct. It goes up to a total of 45 feet.
So this will apply to any other D1 districts that could be created in the town of Milton in the future. Is that correct?
Yes, if the town decides to add another large property to the D1 district, it's a minimum of 20 acres. It would be a nonprofit entity that would have to operate, all in accordance with the balance of the D1 zoning.
Mr. Corcoran and Ms. King, I want to interrupt here. As your moderator, I have been liberal to allow this questioning back and forth, but quite frankly, it's the history and the practice of town meeting to not allow that as a sort of, for example, a debate in court. But I thought the discussion was adding clarity. Ms. King, is there anything else that you think pertinent that I think your point is made? I hope that Mr. Corcoran addressed most of it. Is there anything else you need before we move on? We do have other town meeting members waiting and wishing to speak.
Oh, no, this is fine. I'm perfectly happy to hear the other members.
All right. Thank you, Ms. King. Thank you, Mr. Corcoran. I now recognize Robert Lavash. You've been waiting. Mr. Lavash, you're recognized.
Yeah, Rob Levash, Precinct 10.
Mr. Lavash, I apologize. If you could hold, I've just been told they have a point of order in front of me. Hold 1 minute. Apparently, somebody has asked, what is the motion? Mr. Chinman has asked a point of order. What is the motion before the body? The motion before the body is what's on the screen. It starts with the recommended the town will vote and then continues down. That is what the motion is before the body. All right, and with that, Mr. Lavash, I apologize, but you're recognized.
Yeah, I absolutely support this article. As Ned mentioned, this will create 36 affordable units, which will be 75% of our SHI, and will be 48. Will be 75% of the 48 units a year that we need to create for affordable housing. So I'm absolutely in support of this Winter Valley project and in support of the article.
Thank you, Mr. Lavash. And I would tell you as your moderator, we have 4 more speakers wishing to be recognized. And we also have the chair of our select board, Melinda Collins, who wishes to be recognized. Ms. Collins, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Melinda Collins, Select Board Chair, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 9. The Select Board would like to unanimously support this article as it's being proposed to be amended. This isn't simply about people wanting to downsize. There's an increasing rate of poverty, especially among seniors in the town of Milton. And we just had a very thoughtful and lively debate about helping seniors. And we would have 36 units of housing that would, 50% AMI doesn't exist anywhere else in any other project except in housing for elders. And Milton Residence for the Elderly is the leader in this. They've been a great asset to the town. Again, I think it's very important that we do this for our seniors. Yes, as Mr. Collins pointed out, this is 36 units on our subsidized housing inventory without the addition of increased housing units that actually set us farther behind. But really, it's just the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. Michael Perrone, you're recognized.
Yes, Michael Perrone, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I just have one question. If Mr. Corcoran could clarify what about this project would have to change if this article does not pass? It seems very tailored to this project, but I'm not sure what it would have looked like without this variance or without this article.
Mr. Cochran, could you address the meeting member's question?
Yes, well, quite simply, Winter Valley would not have the ability to expand and add this new building. The current zoning caps Winter Valley's unit count at 160, and we need this zoning to allow the additional 36 units to be developed.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. Mr. Crone, did you have a follow-up or are you all set?
I'm all set.
Thank you, sir. Kathleen O'Donnell, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Kathleen O'Donnell, Precinct 7, Town Meeting Member, and also Plan Member of the Planning Board. And I just wanted to address prior speakers' comments. We did have a public hearing at the Planning Board. We spent a lot of time looking at the impact of this proposed change on the other D1 district, which is in fact the Home Inc. properties. We looked at the conservation restrictions that had been recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and we had looked at an unrecorded agreement that had been submitted to us by one of the abutters that had been executed over 30 years ago when there was a prior application for additional units at Winter Valley. So we did in fact hold the hearings as we are required to do, and we did in fact take in comments from abutters who were both in favor and some opposed to this article. But all of those citizens were entitled to speak at our hearing, and they did. And we thank them all for their participation. But in the end, we did take a vote to support this article on the grounds that, as previous speakers have mentioned, that affordable housing is obviously a critical need in this town. Affordable senior housing is an extremely critical need in this town. And this project has been operated very well over the years. And we think that it will be an asset. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Ms. O'Donnell. I see Melinda Collins, you have your hand still raised. Is that on purpose? Looks like it's not. Okay. The next speaker to recognize is Cheryl Tagayas. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Cheryl Tagayas, Precinct 9. Winter Valley and Home Inc. are both in close proximity to one another and to my residence at 600 Canton Avenue, or 660 Canton Avenue rather, and my neighbors on the Merwood Drive or Canton Ave Extension and Holmes Lane. These neighbors have been in discussions for well over a year in looking at the 40B proposals that Mr. Corcoran mentioned. And there's been discussions amongst the members about this proposal to add units to Winter Valley. And I would just say that neighbors are in general agreement that Winter Valley is a quiet neighbor. While there are 160 units there now, the activity generated from that development is very low. This building would be set back quite substantially from the street, and the visibility of the new building is really limited to the handful of neighbors that Mr. Corcoran referenced, who all, again, I am a member of the planning board as well. And those particular neighbors who are closest did all send emails to the planning board in support of this amendment. Further, I would like to point out that this is zoning and it's not actually a building proposal. Mr. Corcoran did show a schematic of a building, but what we're looking at is the zoning which would allow for that building. The actual detail of that building will be subject to a public hearing, a site plan approval process through the planning board, at which time we would seek to work with the applicant to develop a building that hopefully would be less in height than what the zoning allows. Let's remember that zoning, this would be setting a maximum height, and the building design can be modified over time and hopefully not reach that maximum height. I think it's critical for us to recognize that we have 9 or 10 40B developments pending in Milton. And it's in large part because the town in the past has been reluctant to pass zoning that allows as of right affordable housing. It's critical that we change that path and that we start to really address the shortfall that we have. And this is a proposal which very clearly will have low impact and help us meet our affordable housing needs. So I would urge a yes vote.
Thank you, Mr. Guys. Just for the benefit of the town meeting members, I want you to know we have several members that are waiting to speak. For example, I see Mr. Paul Needham, Mr. Michael Chinman, Thomas Callahan, Diane Tully Agostino, Joseph Reardon, Jay Fundling, waiting. So it's best, I guess, to get through to everyone to keep moving it along. So, Mr. Paul Needham, you're recognized.
Am I unmuted? Can you hear me, Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Needham, if you could just step back a little bit from your microphone, it was a little reverberating. Try that again.
All right. How's this? Better?
That's definitely better, maybe a little bit further back.
I'll go to the next room. I'm Paul Needham. I'm a town meeting member from Precinct 3, and I'm the president of the board of directors at Milton Residence for the Elderly. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about Milton Residence for the Elderly that you perhaps didn't know. It was formed in 1968 by the Milton Mattapan Clergy Association and the Milton Interfaith Commission for Senior Citizen Housing. And so that the priests and the ministers and the rabbis from all the churches got together and we had common ground regardless of what differences you might have in different religions. And that was to take care of people in need with housing. And so they went forward, and from that time, originally, all the board members were members of the churches and members of the clergy. And we still have members of the clergy on our board. And that's what got us started, the idea of affordable housing. And as we moved along, we really done an excellent job at that. And I'd certainly like to tell you about, we have, at the present time, we've got 160 units at Winter Valley. And if we get these extra 36, we'll have 196. And at Equity House, we have 139 units. And so those are the two buildings, and we like to add this sixth building. And as you've heard, it's a little bit larger. And yet, despite the fact that it's a little bit larger, you can see from the photos, it's nestled in the woods. We tried to be a good neighbor, and we certainly appreciate the fact that the neighbors and the abutters have joined with us in backing this article. And we also are thankful to the planning board for voting in favor of this article, because it's a really good operation. We have a wonderful, as I mentioned, we have a wonderful executive director in Sarah McLaren who does a great job there. So many of you have had family members or friends who have stayed in either one of these places, so you know how good they are. So this is something that started back in 1968, and I think it's something that we can be justifiably proud of, that this isn't some federal program or something that was put upon us. It's something that came up from the grassroots, from the churches in town, to do the right thing. I think we've carried on with the right thing, and building 6 would enable us to complete that mission and to continue that. And I think that there's a great legacy in what was done by these people that founded it back in 1968. I think the best way to honor that legacy is to approve Article 48, and that will allow us to continue this mission that's gone forward, and something of which I think the town and each and every one of the town meeting members should be proud. It's a tribute to Milton that we've done this, and I urge you to vote yes on Article 48. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Needham. So of the remaining town meeting members that I see waiting to speak, consistent with our culture and our habits, I'm going to move to the members who have not yet had a chance to speak. So Mr. Callahan, Thomas Callahan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Callahan, Precinct 4. I just rise to add my voice to those who are supporting this article and urge fellow town meeting members to support this as well. I think everybody knows we have a long road in front of us in terms of meeting the Chapter 40B requirements. We have to add about 500 units of affordable housing in town in order to get to 10%. That's not even meeting the need, of course, that's just to get to 10%. But these 36 units will take a step in that direction. They're needed. We obviously need more affordable housing options for our elderly. I will point out there's a dire need for affordable units for families in town. Almost all of our affordable units are for elderly. But I would say that shouldn't stop us from supporting this very good proposal to add 36 quality affordable units in town. So I urge a yes vote on this.
Thank you, Mr. Callahan. Mr. Reardon, Joseph Reardon, you're recognized.
Mr. Moderator, thank you to you and through you to the my colleagues here on the floor. Mr. Moderator, my rising tonight is strictly with regard to my support of this. However, my concerns with regard to the representation of Mr. Corcoran, and through you to Mr. Corcoran, is Mr. Corcoran rising as a member of town meeting or as a paid consultant to the entity advising this article?
So my response to that is Mr. Corcoran, in fact, is a town meeting member, and as such can address the body. He recognized himself as that, but then he also, as is required at town meeting, declared that, in fact, he is representing others' interests here. So I think he's appropriately handled that.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is a situation where, unfortunately, at this stage in the game, the Milton Town Meeting has, in some respects, given its agrarian origins, has outlived its purpose. And I feel that in some cases that some members come to the table who have a financial interest in the workings of the town meeting. And although they acknowledge that, there is some concern here. That being said, Mr. Corcoran, you have represented many other entities within the town and have represented them at town meeting. And it is to your financial advantage to do so. In this particular case, I agree, particularly with my friend, Mr. Callahan, that this is extremely important for the town to have the additional advantage of some affordable housing. We are gravely lacking in that. As an individual who has co-chaired with my dear friend, Carolyn Cahill, with the CPA, we have looked forward to that. I just wanted to reframe it a little bit, Mr. Moderator, with your permission and your consideration, and the fact that we want to separate this out between those who may be benefiting financially from this as to those who may be concerned more greatly with the concerns of the residents of the town. So I encourage my colleagues in the town meeting to vote in favor of this, despite whatever individuals may come before us seeking approval strictly because of a financial advantage. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Reardon. Okay, looking at the list, I believe we now have members waiting that have spoken again. So in order, Mr. Lavash, you're recognized. It may be possible that you just forgot to lower your hand the last time. I'm not sure. Do you wish to be recognized, Mr. Lavash? Hearing no response, I will move on. Mr. Chinman, do you wish to be recognized?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Michael Chinman, Precinct 2. I appreciate the arguments in favor of adding affordable housing units. I guess I'm confused about the implicit links that seem to have been made about this development and the Tamposi 40Bs. Mr. Corcoran in his presentation pointed out the proposed Tamposi 40B developments, mentioned that he represents abutters who also oppose those developments. And I'm just confused. Is there a link between this proposed development and the 40Bs that abutters are opposing? Will this make somehow it easier to obstruct the 40B developments, or is there no connection at all? Because I mean, 36 units is a step towards 10%, but it doesn't bring us anywhere close to 10%.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me seek to get a response to that. Mr. Cochran, would you like to take a shot at responding?
Sure. Thank you, Ned Corcoran, Precinct 3 and Council to Winter Valley. My understanding is that if these units are developed, they could be added to 14 other units that may be developed in one of the other 40Bs pending. And that combination of 50 units would help the town achieve at least what's known as a temporary safe harbor against future filings under Chapter 40B. It will move the needle, it won't move it a long way. But it is, my representation each is somewhat linked because the properties abut each other, but these are two separate matters.
Mr. Chairman, is that satisfied, or were you looking for a follow-up?
I'm not looking for follow-up.
Thank you, sir. I see we now have another first time during this discussion member wishing to speak. Adam Oakes, you're recognized.
Thank you. Adam Oakes, Precinct 5 Town Meeting Member. I just wanted to offer a friendly amendment. First off, to change the word handicapped, if I could, in the section D to the word accessible. I think it seems more appropriate. And also, it seems that there is some strange wording in that sentence as well. I'd like to change that so it says, further, no single building in a residence D1 district shall contain more than 8 independent dwelling units except housing for the elderly and or accessible development that may include one building, and then continues on it as it is.
I apologize, I was speaking and I was still on mute. Mr. Oakes, I fully understood your proposed suggestion in the hopes that the proponents would accept it as a friendly amendment, changing the word handicap to accessible. However, the rest of it, I for one, lost how much verbiage and specifically what verbiage it is.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So after the second comma,
what section are we looking at right now?
Section D. Section D.
Section D, thank you.
Yeah, the second sentence after the second comma where it says except, I believe that A is not needed there. So it should say except housing for the elderly and or accessible development that may include.
Okay, sir, if you would hold 1 minute, I want to see if we've got that.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, Mr. Cochran, you're recognized.
Ned Corcoran, I'm looking at Precinct 3. I'm looking at the current bylaw as it's written in our zoning. And that's the language that's in the bylaw. It may have not have been artfully drafted 30 years ago, but that's the way it is drafted.
So, Mr. Cochran, are you suggesting that that it would be a change that should be more extended to our bylaws in general rather than the motions before the body?
I think that may be right. The language handicapped is language that has been existing since 1989. And the language that says except that a housing for the elderly and or handicapped, that language is how it exists. I think it would be appropriate at the right time to clean that up. But I would rely on others to determine whether or not it's appropriate to do it in the body of this proposal.
So thank you, Mr. Oakes. Can I ask if it seems like this is a suggestion per Mr. Cochran that might be best served if you were to work with the bylaw committee to see that we get addressed. We heard earlier a lot of discussion about a focus that's going to be on this because, among other things, our most recent bylaws are not on the town website. And so it just seems it's just a suggestion as your moderator, which you can say no to, sir, that it might be best to bring that forward to them. And I apologize, but I've got a question, a point of order I have to look at.
Very well. Okay.
So a town meeting member has raised as a point of order that Mr. Oak's motion has been seconded. So unless Mr. Oakes, unless you withdraw it, then we're going to have to address the motion to amend, which has been seconded. So Mr. Oakes, are you still comfortable after the comments were made that it's a motion you want to go forward with?
I am, I think, yes.
Okay. All right, folks, let me just first check the verbiage that's up in front of you. Excuse me for 1 minute. So folks, just for your information, what we're attempting to do now is to incorporate the motion from Mr. Oakes into what will be in front of the body before we continue. I guess just for the for efficiency's sake too, I would signal to our warrant committee to start considering the motion to amend. And I guess it's a motion that's been made and seconded. Another consideration was, I guess, Mr. Oakes, you asked if it could be a friendly amendment accepted by the proposer. And I believe I heard Mr. Cochran say no, that he didn't think that was appropriate. Is that true, Mr. Cochran?
No, I'm happy to accept it as a friendly amendment. I think there are broader implications to strike that. We have no objection to accepting that as a friendly amendment.
I'm sorry, I missed you, Ned. You have no objections to accepting?
We accept it as a
friendly amendment. Okay, hold on 1 minute. I'm checking another point of order. Thank you, members. I have had another member asking if a motion to amend the existing language in the bylaw is beyond the scope. However, even before we get that, hold on 1 second. A lot of moving parts here, folks. Hold on. So folks, we have a couple of interesting things. Two different points of order challenging whether this change can be made. One saying, can we make it a motion of town meeting to amend an existing bylaw? Another one is saying the town was not properly notified of any plan to amend this existing bylaw, an interesting question. And then not only that, but our town council is raising the question that can we just change the word handicap to accessible? Like, what is the full scope and meaning of accessible? And is it exactly equal to handicap? And in his opinion, it's not, it's beyond the scope. So I think in light of all of these questions, Mr. Oakes, I just ask you again, does any of that make you consider withdrawing the motion, or do you still feel you want to pursue that type of change here rather than other means?
I'm willing, given the all these considerations, I'm willing to withdraw it.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I think we're all set. If any member is concerned about Mr. Oakes withdrawing, speak up now, or we will move on. Okay, thank you. Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Oakes. And again, I would suggest as your moderator that we had a lot of discussion about the town bylaws, and if you could work with the town bylaw committee, because among other things, I think there are, and there are probably other town meeting members would agree, there is certainly some merit to your thought process in that might be best followed up on. So thank you. I'd like, again, since they haven't spoken this previously, I'd like to recognize Anita Asher Wakeham.
Yes, hi. Good evening. Anita Asher Joaquim, Precinct 5, town meeting member. I have a question about eligibility for these homes, these affordable homes. Are Milton residents put ahead of the queue for these, or are they for anybody in the state?
So before I even look to entertain anyone to address that, I would say to you, Anita, and it's an understandable situation, but although it's an interesting question to you, it's really beyond the scope of the motion that's before the body. So unfortunately, in this situation, I'm not going to allow to pursue the answer to that question as it's outside the scope.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Is there anything else?
Well, it's the first time I've ever spoken because I'm new.
And ma'am, you do not need to apologize. As a town meeting member, it's your right. And frankly, I always admire those town meeting members willing to speak up. Everyone it was the first time, and there are a lot of laws in any town, so you certainly can't understand them all the first time. So thank you. Is there anything else you want to mention?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see hold on a minute, please. I see a point of order by Mrs. Agostino, and I would recognize you. I want you to know, Ms. Agostino, again, as a custom here at town meeting, I had not recognized you because we try to recognize those that have not had a chance to speak to the amendment first. That's history here at town meeting, first timers, but please go ahead.
Diane DiTullio Agostino, Precinct 9, Chair of the Commission on Disability, and for the record, I have not spoken to this article.
Well, then I apologize, Ms. Agostino. I'm a little rusty. I didn't realize that. I thought you had.
So the reason I kept putting point of order up was I want to back up to the very beginning. And what I was going to say was that I would ask that we, avoid or just dispense with the reading of the article of the recommendation. And that might have been, this was way back ago, that might have been why people were confused about what we were voting, if it was actually an amendment to the article versus the warrant committee's actual recommendation. So in light of that, and because the recommendation is so brief, I think that we should go forward and have you read the recommendation into the record versus dispensing of it. And with regards to during the interim, after the motion, the friendly motion was made. It was a friendly motion. You might have missed the fact that the proponent accepted the friendly motion. So I'm not sure if they both have to withdraw the friendly motion, both the person who proposed it as well as the proponent. However, finally pulling up the general bylaws, the word amend handicap is used elsewhere within this same D1 chapter. So not only would it be out of scope, but it would not be appropriate. I would want to mention to the body and thank the town meeting member who brought this to the attention of all of us, that the usage of words when it comes to those who have both physical or mental disabilities, the use of words has changed a lot over the years. And the Commission on Disability is actually going to be reviewing some of these bylaws for the purposes of changing it. I mean, we recently saw the word problem, that, you know, someone who had a problem. I do have one additional question for the proponent because of this section and the wording. Is any area of this proposed building going to be a certified assisted living residence, or is it 100% simply elderly and those who need handicap accessible sites? So there's several questions in there if you want me to repeat specifically, but reading the recommendation, the last one being if there's going to be any certified assisted living residences within this building, and also who's going to be, if the proponent also withdraws his acceptance of that friendly amendment.
So Ms. Agostino, trying to summarize what I think I heard, you are requesting that the moderator read the amended motion for the record, although it's on the screen. For some reason, you prefer my voice to read it. Is that correct?
Only because there was never any recommendation to defer with the reading. So it either has to have been deferred, which I think at this point, we might as well go forward and read it, because that's generally what happens at the beginning. That was item number 1.
So that is your moderator's call. And the moderator, the history here has been, does anyone object to the moderator not reading it? And I don't recall that I did say that. So let's do this, Ms. Agostino. I would say to the body, does anyone object to the fact that the moderator will not read the motion? Ms. Agostino, it sounds like you might be.
No, that's fine. At least we dispensed with the formality of that question.
Okay, thank you.
And
then secondly, some of the other remarks, and I know town council sort of getting my attention, are essentially out of the scope. So not that they're not valuable remarks, but I think outside of the scope of the discussion here with the motion in front of the body.
And as a follow-up, my point was that this particular chapter has other paragraphs with that language. So therefore, it might be out of the scope, but it also would not make any sense to have some paragraphs referred to as handicap versus accessible. But finally,
a valuable point, Ms. Agostino, exactly.
Finally, the proponent, I want to make sure the proponent says that he's still not accepting the friendly amendment. And the ultimate most important question, is the building going to have any units certified as assisted living residences with the Executive Office of Elder Affairs?
Okay, so Ms. Agostino, I will pursue that last question, but I want you to know I do not intend to hear whether Mr. Corcoran has accepted that, because we have ruled it out of scope and will not allow it to proceed. But Mr. Corcoran, could you address Mrs. Agostino's question?
Yes, I have a text. Ned Corcoran, Precinct 3, Council to Winter Valley. I have a text from Sarah McLaren, who is the Executive Director, indicating no assisted living units.
Thank you, Mr. Corcoran. And thank you, Ms. Agostino. Okay, we have, looking down for the first time, we have Michael Dermody. You wish to be recognized?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, Michael Dermody, Precinct 8. I would just like to move the previous question While I appreciate the civil discourse and the democratic process, I just encourage my fellow town meeting members to, I guess, move us closer towards a vote this evening. Thank you.
Okay, so again, Mr. Germany, we moderators in Milton frequently have to do this to explain that in our town meeting, when you say you want to move the question, it's actually a bylaw that says you're asking the body to take a vote that says we're going to limit every body that does speak from here on through the remainder of this motion only once and for 5 minutes. If that's true, if you want to make that motion, then we would seek a second and take a vote. Or were you trying to share your thoughts to town meeting members that we just move this along?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yeah, Michael Dermody, Precinct 8. Yes, I'd still like to make the motion, and even if no one seconds it, just to reinforce my hope that we can hopefully move forward throughout the night. Thank you.
Okay, so he has made the motion. Do we have a second? I see several seconds. Thank you. Okay, so folks, it's a procedural motion before the body that he's moving the question, which we'll put up a poll in a minute, but it's basically asking you if you agree with the motion that everyone from here on through the rest of this motion, the main motion before the body, will only speak once and will speak for 5 minutes or less. So can we put that poll up? So all those in favor of the motion before the body, please signify by voting yes. And all opposed, please vote no. All abstaining will vote to abstain. And this is just a majority vote. And the folks on the phone, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Close the phones. And let's close the polls. Okay, so the motion got a 158 town meeting members say yes, which is 86%. 23 say no, 13%, and 2 abstain, 1%. So that is now the rules for the rest of this consideration. Your moderator will copiously write the notes, the names down of those who address us, so they address us once, and time their remarks to be kept to less than 5 minutes. Now we have, again, looking for first-time addresses here. Richard Wells, you're recognized. Mr. Wells, do you wish to be recognized, and have you taken yourself off mute? He may have stepped away, so let's do this. So I'm going to go back now in the full order so that it doesn't get too confusing for your moderator. The next hand in order I see is Steve McCurdy. Mr. McCurdy, you're recognized.
Hand is raised in error, sir. Sorry.
Not at all. Deborah Felton, your hand is raised. You're recognized.
Mr. Moderator, I just want to say that I would support this article. And Milton Residence for the Elderly has been a great partner, Fuller Village, for many, many years. I think we should support this article and get more elderly housing in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Felton. Genevieve Martland, you're recognized. Genevieve, if you wish to speak, you're muted.
Sorry, my question's been answered. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. Leroy Walker, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Leroy Walker, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 10. Just 2 quick points. I would note that we are rapidly losing people, so we really do need to move this along. And second, I'm happy to be ruled out of scope on this next comment, but Thank you, Mr. Walsh, for filling in as associate moderator. In my opinion, you haven't lost the step. Thank you.
That was very kind, sir. I would love to agree, but I know a few steps I did lose. Thank you. All right, folks. So I see no one else wishing to speak to this motion. Consequently, I am going to move the motion to a vote. I've asked the poll be put up. That we have this light crunch and that things will be back to normal. All right, and also remind folks to be muted. All those in favor of the motion before the body, please signify by voting yes. All opposed, please vote no. All abstaining, please vote abstain. The phones be open. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Thank you. Let's close the phones. And let's close the poll. All right, folks. So we have 175 town meeting members, or 92% have voted yes. 13 members or 7% voted no, and 2 members or 1% abstained. And I declare the motion not only carries, but it carries with a 2/3 vote. All right, well, listen, thank you, folks. That was the last motion before the body. Yeah, no, I knew that. Those in the room, Mr. Walker, who recognized I might be slipping, were afraid I wasn't going to ask for a motion to abstain or dissolve. I just did want to say, though, thank you all. Another great town meeting. It's so nice to see the participation, and I am so glad that Mr. Hiss will be back next time. And I look forward to the fact that we'll be meeting in person, hopefully next time. With that, I look for a motion to abstain and adjourn. It's been moved. I'm looking for a second. There's a second. Okay, so we have a motion to adjourn. It's been made and seconded. Let's put up a poll. It's not debatable. In Washington, D.C. or not? Okay, I think good. All those in favor of the motion before the body, please signify by voting yes. All opposed, vote no. All abstaining, please vote to abstain. Let's open up the phones. All those in favor say yes or aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Let's close the poll. We'll close the phone. And let's close the poll. And we have 99% or 176 members that voted yes. 2% or 2 members or 1% have voted no. Folks, it's my pleasure to tell you that we are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.